Houston is right there with North Carolina, I think, as maybe even the top team in college.
What's up, everyone? Season 2, Episode 2, if I'm not mistaken, of Matt's Madness. Matt's got the fresh haircut. That's the only reason we're doing this episode right now. But let's jump right into it. So first topic, we know today was the last day NBA or college players can decide if they want to go to the next level or not. So I'll go to Carl first, and we have Carl Jones joining us, by the way. So I'll go to you first, Carl. Top player that comes to your mind, the first name that comes to your mind that decided to come back in college basketball that'll help his team out the most.
Now, before I get to that, I just want to say appreciate Matt for having me on. My dog, always good to link up and hop on. That. Now, I think this one is the one that came down to the last hour. This is one of those decisions where I'm scrolling across my ticker last night. You know, I ain't got cable these days, but you know, you find a way to channel surf. And the Gonzaga man, Drew Timme. I mean, talk about dragging it out to the last second, and man,
right.
You do that, two-time All-American, a who's who of honors, and I think it kind of puts Gonzaga right back in that mix of where they've been the past few years of a national title contender. I mean, I think it's great for the sport of college basketball as well. More recognizable names, more high-power names in that regard, and it allows allows viewers to kind of like stay around the game and not. You know, a lot of people complaining about like, oh, one and done guys are coming and going. How can I get the continuity with the sport? My favorite guys are never staying. Well, if you like handlebars and you like guys flexing up and down the court, you'll be back another year. So I think for me, for that reason alone, just the recognizable name and just keeping some star power in the sport.
Hey, before you get off that, talk to me a little more about guys coming back instead of leaving early. Like, do you think as a quality that's better for a whole for college basketball and then also the NBA because those guys are more ready to go to the next level? Or do you think one and done is still going to be like the norm?
Well, I think NIL kind of shifts all of that stuff. I think that for me personally, I think the college game itself, coaches included, think they should be rooting for these guys to come back. I mean, let's be real. Continuity is a thing. Chemistry is a thing. Like, let's not just try to act like it's not. But on the flip side, I'm all for these players getting paid and chasing their dreams and making generational wealth. So I'm not going to ever knock a player too harshly for making that decision. But I think NIL changes all of that. And we'll get into this a little bit later when we get to that topic. But, man, with this NIL money coming in, y'all are seeing these numbers. They're ridiculous. I think players will be a little bit more inclined to turn down that money for just one more year of that booster money or bagman money, as they say.
Now it's legal. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Drew Timme is really the clear-cut answer. I mean, that I feel like shocked everyone. I didn't think he was going to come back. And then I like the way he released it. He just literally says, I'm back.
Was it on Twitter?
Yeah, no graphic, no big time stuff, just
Michael Jordan style.
Exactly. It's the perfect way to do it. But for the sense of picking another player, I'm going to go with Marcus Sasser on Houston because this is a Cougars team that if they were able to get Marcus Sasser, this whole lineup back that they had last year before Sasser went down, they were projected this year as a Final Four contender. We saw what Houston did 2 years ago, reaching the Final Four. All of a sudden last season, a couple of their main guys go down. They still make a run in March, and that was one of the most surprising runs for me. I was counting them out after their guys went down. They really picked it up, and some of these role players stepped up into better roles. So now that they get their guy back, a guy who was on that – I mean, Marcus Sasser starred on that Final Four team. He was a main player on that Cougars team a couple of years ago. Kelvin Sampson gets him back, and arguably Houston – is right there with North Carolina, I think, as maybe even the top team in college basketball next season, at least in the preseason, just by getting Marcus Sasser back. And I think it's a key decision as too, because like Drew Timme, these are guys that have already given their all to college, and Sasser likely will get a good chance in the NBA. He certainly isn't just a guy who's going to, have a great career in college and then kind of go off the deck a little bit and not really pan out into anything in the association. So important decision for him, and I really like it for Houston.
All right, great answer, Matt. I'll stick with you for the second topic. Player who's risking the most by going to the NBA. I can't remember. I'm trying to think of a player who was in this situation, but I can't really think of a guy who went to the NBA and he would regret it, I guess. But who do you think would be risking the most by going to the league?
Yeah, there's a couple of names. I'll throw some out right now, and then I'll get to my real answer. Obviously, the biggest discussion is Moussa Diabate and Caleb Houston on Michigan, two players that I think a lot of people thought might come back. Not that they won't have success in the NBA. They certainly both have, the ideal is to be able to make it in the NBA, but they end up going to the NBA. David Roddy, another guy in Colorado, an undersized forward who decides to leave Colorado State and go to the NBA. But I'm going with John Butler from Florida State. He's obviously, you look at his intangibles, a 7'1", 190-pound former top 100 recruit. So he's got the height. He definitely needs to put on some size. But, he was highly touted coming out of high school. But only 1 year with Florida State, only played about 20 minutes a game. But as a 7'1" player, had a field goal percentage barely over 40%, couldn't hit his free throws, only pulling down about 3 rebounds a game. He did average about a block per game. So I think that's really the key thing for him is what defense can he provide in the NBA. But when you look at the offense, it was a big struggle for Butler and a Florida State team that really needed someone like him to pick it up because the Seminoles didn't really have a great season last year. So I kind of look at that decision, and I feel like another year with Leonard Hamilton, one of the top players, one of the top coaches in the ACC, especially with Coach K gone now, I think that would have done him more justice instead of going to the league. Obviously, like you said, though, you can't really fault anyone for going to the NBA and passing up the money at hand, but I just don't even know if he's going to get drafted with what he put up at Florida State.
Wow. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I think we talk about money. Well, I think getting drafted, I think is the biggest point of all.
Right.
Declaring is one thing, but yeah, it's still only 60 names that get selected. And I believe this year, a couple teams are forfeiting picks, so that's even less guys that get families proud. For me, I think there's two guys that stick out, and obviously, as we talked about before, I'm a big school guy, so I tend to be biased towards that. Sorry, listeners at home. So for me, it's the schools on the east end of the coast. UCLA with Jules Bernard, and then Trevor Keels out in Duke. Starting with Bernard a little bit, nothing too in depth on the West Coast guy, but I know he's been at UCLA a long time, and I know how much better can you get being at a school for that I guess length of time. But for me, if you're not on any mock draft at this point, you didn't really get an invite to the NBA Combine after being a late invite to the G League camp. I just don't know where's I want to say the logic, because these guys have more access to information than we ever will send from confines of our home. But I just want to know what was the thought process on, I guess, just bypassing another year of college and maybe improving another year, having one of those just years where you're able to springboard your success into a second round pick. I know his limitations are clearly there, and he's not like the recruit that we thought he was coming out of high school. But I just want to know, if you're not really projected to be a draft pick, you didn't even get sent to the combine, where's the logic, right? I just want to know that one. So I think that's kind of risky in that regard. And then also for me, I think as a guy who will get drafted, it's just that I think he could have parlayed some of that money into some more by staying as Trevor Keels. Obviously, he's a player who I think he has a specific type in the league that I'm seeing a little bit more now with the Avery Bradley type, Lou Dort out in OKC, those guys who may not be the most effective shooters and playmakers and shot creators. But when it comes to sliding them puppies, they can do that on the other end of the floor, and he can do that with the best of the best. I just thought, with him being so young, like he's only 18 and he'll be the youngest guy in the draft by far, him staying another year wouldn't do service in terms of the age thing, right? Like for some odd reason, I don't get it. These draft evaluators say, "Oh man, this kid's 21. I'm taking the right kid." It's just like, can he ball or can he ball? Like I understand like there's a thing such as growth and all that good stuff, but it's just like if a kid can hoop, and that's how some of these guys like Jalen Brunson are slipping because guys are overthinking.
That's a good point, Carl. What do you think the thought process is behind maybe like these guys or whoever's guiding them as far as, all right, this is my game. I know it's only been 1 year. I'm probably not going to get drafted in the top 10, but I know my game. I know my role. Like you're talking about like the Avery Bradley kind of guy, or maybe you're just a shooter. So you know what you're doing. Like going back to college, you're gonna shoot regardless. Like if you're in the league or you're in college. So what do you think the thought process is? Like we know the teams will benefit off these guys getting back, but if we're straight looking at the lens from these players, what do you guys think like their thought process is? I mean, it can be hard. Like, damn, I might not get picked at all. But do you think some of them are almost thinking, yo, G League is probably a better option for me than college, anyways?
For me, I think it stands out from if I'm an agent, right, or a guy who's guiding these guys, I want to protect your stock as much as possible. And sometimes sending you back to a school where you have more responsibility hurts your draft stock because now teams are like, whoa, this kid is more comfortable with more on his plate. Like, for example, this year at Duke, he obviously he's going to have a top 3 pick, presumably in the draft on his team. He may not have that same type of creator on his team, and now he has more on his plate. And now his flaws are kind of and weaknesses are magnified a little bit.
Correct.
On your play. And I know Matt knows a who's who of guys like that who went back to school, I mean, this is across all sports, right? High expectations. Then you sent them back to school, and it's like, oh snap, he wasn't on that for real. And it's just like, maybe he should have protected his stock a little bit more by staying in the draft. So maybe Keels is that guy, although I think that he has the chops to, be able to do his thing by himself a little. Not by himself, because Duke is always going to have guys, but that's just how I feel on that topic.
Real quick, I do want to shout out Trevor Keels. We had him on the podcast when he was just in high school before he really became a star. So, shout out to Sam Bass for setting that one up because that was big time. Obviously rooting the best for him. I do agree with you there, Karl. I mean, I do think I like Trevor Keels a lot at Duke. I get the sense that you also like the way that he plays. So I don't think it's a matter of that. And obviously you go to Duke, you're going to get the NIL money. That's going to work out. So totally see where you're coming from. I just wonder if the coaching change maybe had something to do with that. Not that he doesn't like John Shire, but maybe it's just like, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a change in how things are run, maybe a tad. So this might be a good time to get out. I'm going to go off on Jules Bernard a little bit. And I don't want to go off on a kid ever for making a decision when they're a college kid. But now he's in the NBA. Now you can go off on him because he's a pro basketball player. I don't understand this decision whatsoever. You look at the NBA draft, right? The top players that are picked are guys that are really good all-around players. They can give a lot to the game. Jules Bernard is not that, or else he would have been listed in the lottery or the first round. So when you go to the second round and past that, you've got to be a guy that can really do one thing great. You got to be a great shooter, a great rebounder, a great defender. You look at Jules Bernard, he isn't any of those. He can score the ball a little bit. Maybe he was overshadowed by other guys, but he doesn't shoot the three well. He rebounds about average for a 6'6", 200-pound guy. Doesn't really pass the ball well. The best thing that he does is shoot free throws well. Well, I hate to break it to you. You're not getting drafted for how well you shoot free throws. So that alone just tells me that I don't understand this decision. And to go on just a little bit more, NBA Scouting Live has this report on Jules Bernard. Decent shooter, decent scorer off the dribble, can post up smaller players. Well, how about what can you for sure do? Not just decent. And to wrap it all up, he was given a workout by the Lakers. I just don't know if that's going to work out with the Lakers because they're going to be wanting a lot more than that. One of his cons is can be too passive on offense. Well, the Lakers need a lot of offense, so that ain't going to fly in LA. And with Coach Ham out there. So again, good luck to him. Like I'm not ever rooting against these guys.
For sure.
But I don't really understand what the hell he's thinking when he goes to the NBA when you could come back to a Bruins team that's also going to be a second weekend team this year.
I think Amari Bailey is very ecstatic that some of those guys made that decision to bounce in. More touches for Mr. Bailey next year. I'm sure he's happy about that.
For sure.
Listen, that's a tough decision right there, but we'll see. Yeah, the Lakers, they need more shooting than anything. They don't need another guy that could pass up shots. But all right, moving on to the last topic of the day. If you were a junior right now in college and you were getting second round looks, what would you do? Now, again, these guys probably have the option of going overseas, making money. So everyone has a different situation. But if you were a junior right now and you knew you could get picked up in the second round, what would you do?
You can go pop it off, Matt.
Right. Obviously, the specifics of this question are just off the charts. Really thought deep about this one. I think I would have to stay in college. I don't
Really?
know if I could pass up the NIL money. I've
Mm.
always been a bigger college guy. What I will say is I think it depends what type of player I am. If I'm maybe an athletic swingman, um, a down low player who's putting up some numbers and can give it on the defensive end, I think then I'd have to think about it more. But if I'm just a Jules Bernard, and again, I don't mean to single him out, but that's the first name that comes to
Jules, you'll
mind.
be all right, Jules. Just listen to this podcast and you'll have all the hate you need for the rest of your life to motivate you.
I think that I would stay in college. I just don't think that I could pass up the NIL money. And again, there's even more that goes into it. Is the NIL money good at your college? But I'm just kind of taking it from the mid-level, what the average player that's a junior, maybe they're playing at Cincinnati or at, Arkansas, just your average team that, it can work out no matter what way it's going to, you're not at Duke, you're not at Wyoming. You get the point. I think I would stay in college because the NIL money would be there.
But just to piggyback on what you just said, how much more do you think it can help them going back? Like, do you think can you think guys that went back and improved their draft stock and then came out and they were for sure fire first round picks or surefire second round picks? I mean, I just don't know how much value it is and going back, especially for a guy who knows what he is at that point. But I get your point though, because these guys are young, and I mean, a year of playing can help a lot. So I get what you're saying.
The only thing I can think of is if I'm a junior and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll get picked 45th or 50th. I don't know if I'm going to really, work out with my specific NBA team that I get drafted to. Going back to college for the senior year, I feel like can just elevate your play just by what it does to you on campus. I mean, you go back to the senior year, everyone on campus already knows you're a baller. You come back for that senior season, you're going to get the love on campus. I feel like that could just improve your play right there. Like you would be the man on campus. Everyone wants you to lead them to the championship. I'm assuming this is kind of, what's going on in your head. Like if I come back for the senior year, I'm giving it my all. This is what could happen at college. I think that alone could maybe just bring out so much more NIL deals and just, elevate your play and you'd be so focused on what your goal would be in college and hoping that could translate enough to the NBA, maybe even just get you enough to like an early second round pick or, like a Cassius Winston or a Peyton Pritchard, someone who, I did so much in college. Maybe now I can get drafted at the tail end to a finals competing team that just needs that little piece off the bench.
Point.
See, for me, y'all know I'm a big NBA guy, right? Like through and through. I look through everything through a league lens. For this question, I guess I'm gonna be go against our roots, and I'm gonna actually have to lean towards a college route, depending on school. Now, for me, if you are I don't even want to say Power 5. If you're at a blue blood or near that level of caliber of school, I say go back for a reason that Matt kind of touched on a little bit. Being a collegiate athlete and being on a college campus and knowing the support that you get on campus and, the notoriety that you get, there's something to be said that is kind of invaluable with being that guy and having your name attached to your university for a lifetime. There's just something about that. There's something about the fact that no matter for this 5-year span, whenever you're at college, 4-year span, guys are going to always associate you with having your name attached to that school, no matter what. And you think of there's a litany of guys who've done things like that, who maybe his careers didn't turn out to the in the next level that the way you would, I guess, assume. Like a guy who I think of right now off the top of my head without doing any research is the current Duke coach, John Shire. Like he was a guy from like, if he would have left after his sophomore or junior year, I mean, he would have had a clear role in the league as the guy who was being a shooter. Now, obviously, it didn't translate or parlay into a league career, but he has a niche that every team in the league wants, right? But yeah, he stayed at school, and and I don't want to say a legend, but I mean, Shire is somebody who was never really a superstar yet, is going to be a Dookie for the rest of his life just based off of that alone. So for me, it depends if I'm a big school guy or not. If I'm a smaller school guy and the notoriety of being a big guy at, I don't know, Purdue or whatever. I'm not even trying to brag on Purdue. I know Purdue's a good school, but you get the point. Like a school who's not at the upper echelon of notoriety. I will go back because there's something to be said about, man, he was a 4-year player at Kansas. Look at the love he got. Every time he walked back, Rock Hawk, Jayhawk is all over him. You know what I'm trying to say? And then if the NIL money wasn't a thing, I would say no. But plus, on top of that, the NIL money, like I just think of Drew Timme. No offense to him, I don't really see his role in the league just based off of how these guys are getting attacked in the pick and roll position. But man, Drew Timme is now a legend in college, and that's valuable. And he can be making cheese for the next 15, 20 years just based on the fact that he had a handlebar and can flex up and down the court.
That's a good point.
Like, and I think it's somebody like Tyler Hansbrough, for example. His league career didn't work out the way he wanted. But when it comes to about being a Tar Heel through and through, if
everybody knows him.
If he's just doing this at Wake Forest, I don't know if he's getting the same love. I don't know if he's getting the same allure that this all-time lore. But since he did that career he had at North Carolina, the Blue Blood, I think Hansbrough, man, like now he's in a different stratosphere of college prospect, and now he's in that Tebow conversation where it's just like you can't talk about him in a certain way. Yeah, he a legend, right? So I think for me, if you had one of those Blue Bloods, man, go ahead, knowing and you know that your stock ain't gonna, I guess, improve too much. Improve your stock on campus, man. That it matters a ton.
I'm trying to think, obviously with us all going to Syracuse, if the Orange ever had anyone like that. I don't know if he was a junior. I feel like Tyus came back.
Tyus did come back. It was a question going into his sophomore and junior year. Oh, what the hell are he doing? And he ended up coming back, and I don't think it didn't maybe work out like he wanted, but I mean,
right.
Tyus got love around upstate, man. Tyus got love.
Yeah. I see that point.
That NIL money, man, that's changing a lot of things. I mean, whew.
Well, and not to go too in on the point because I know we're on a little bit of time crunch, but like first round deals are guaranteed, right? Like that's what you sign is what you get. But second round contracts aren't that, and they're negotiated with the team, so it can go from a 1-year deal to a 4-year deal. So if 1 year of $400,000 is all you're getting in terms of and I don't want to get too specific. I think Matt may be looking it up for me. But if you're getting just 1 year and that's the only guarantee you get, why not go back to school and maybe get 200K or whatever, maybe try to parlay it because that 400K is always going to be there, right? If you're a second round prospect, so why not at least get some more guarantee from the 1 year,
I wonder if these guys are almost looking at with their agents and sitting down, this is where I could fall, like to this team, or that team. I don't want to go there. So I'm gonna just go back to school, or the other way around, like, that's a good spot for me. So I wonder if there's almost like things going on in the backdrop where like you were talking about, we don't know everything. So maybe they're even talking to teams. They're like, we'll pick you up right here or whatever. But you can make a decision that way too.
And that's what happened with, I believe it was Isaiah Wong, right? On Miami, who had said that it was like this weird thing that came out that he said he was going to either come back or go to a different school where he could get more money. And then I don't know if that was leaked or not supposed to come out. Now he's back at Miami, and that's got to be awkward because I wouldn't want to go to Coach Larrañaga and say, hey, like I'm back after all that. Yeah.
That is one awkward conversation.
Look, man, for better or for worse, man, they let the cat out the bag, and I blame all the superiors at the NCAA for not getting on this 5-10 years ago. But man, this money situation is gonna have is only gonna go downhill. I mean, come on, man. Like we all young, man, and you give me an option of making $200,000-$300,000. I'm not caring about the color on the front of my jersey, bro. I'm just trying to get paid. So
yeah, that's a great point.
When I heard that story, man, I'm like, man, like for the integrity of the game and how the game's been going, it's not great, but I can't knock a kid for wanting to make some cheese because if someone plopped,
you can't. I don't know how you fault the kids, but I think does need to be some sort of structure around it just going forward. But yeah, you can't. There's no going back. Like you can't take this away from the kids now. No, I mean, this is a professional sport now. Like especially college football and basketball. I mean, that's a professional thing now. I mean, the way they're going to make money, the kids are going to make money. That they could set up. You could probably set up your future generations just based off college now. Not even if you take care of your bread right. So, yeah. All right, y'all. Like Karl mentioned, we are on a time crunch. Great stuff today, Karl. Thanks for joining us. You'll be back, I hope. That was great. Follow us on all socials, everyone at CBB Review. Hope I'm not missing anything. For Matt, Karl, and Talha, we will see you next time.